It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. You can follow us on X, formerly Twitter, Michael P. Leahy. Listen to us on the John Fredericks Radio Network and the John Fredericks Radio app. Watch us on YouTube and coming to Roku pretty soon. Next couple weeks, I think. We are joined right now on our Zoom newsmaker line by our very good friend, the founder of the Nashville Tea Party, Mr. Ben Cunningham. Good morning, Ben.
Michael, good morning. How are you?
I think this is the first time we've done a Zoom call with you here, and we are delighted to see you are technologically advanced, very capable in the technology arena. Also, it's a lot easier to do a Zoom call than to drive in and out and be in studio. Although it's always fun being in studio, isn't it?
It is. It is. Lots of fun. But the weather is not cooperating.
The weather is frightful. Ben, let me talk to you about this. We were talking with Mark Pulliam in our previous segment about in California, a lot of local politicians. He described the problem of elected local politicians over the last 30 years in California have gotten stupider. I don't think that's necessarily the case here in Nashville. They've just gotten more leftist and more flagrant in their violation of the law. You have been involved in an example of that, some litigation. Describe the underlying violation of the law here by Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell and the efforts that have been undertaken by a group that you're part of to go to court to overturn that.
Yeah, I would preface it by saying you're quite right. And sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference between incompetence and stupidity. Sometimes
or malevolence. Or
malevolence, exactly. This transit tax just passed in Nashville recently, and it was a half-cent sales tax, and it was supposedly for transit. And the state law that enabled the referendum was very clear about what the funds can be used for. And the mayor and his transit advisors basically said, to hell with that. We're going to put in lots of stuff in this program that is not enabled by the law, the enabling law. So that's what they did. And that's what the litigation is about, is basically holding them to account for all the stuff that they put in the transit plan that shouldn't be in the transit plan. But it is really, it's really relevant to what's happening in California also. Like you said, the government basically goes off on tangents, and they don't pay attention to the basic things that they should be doing. In California, it's fighting fires and public safety and all the things that we expect government to do. And government has failed us time and time again. And if we don't hold government to account, they'll continue to fail us. And we're seeing that pattern develop, unfortunately, in Nashville. We got a wake-up call with the transit vote. Unfortunately, it passed overwhelmingly because Nashville is becoming more and more lefty. We have probably one of the most left-leaning city councils that we've ever had. And we've got a big property tax increase coming here in just a few weeks that they're going to be considering. So it is absolutely essential that we stop this trend, because we don't want Nashville to turn into Austin or any of these lefty strongholds that we see across the country. But it will if we don't watch out. And, unfortunately, California, the whole damn state, has turned into a lefty stronghold. And we see what has happened. Government has turned into this mess, this absolute extraordinary mess, where people are hired based not on their competence, not on what they can do for taxpayers and citizens, but based on some identity which has absolutely nothing to do with competence. And if we don't stop that and hold them accountable at the local level, we'll see the same thing developing in Nashville, and it'll spread like a cancer to other counties. We've seen it to some extent in Texas. less so here in Tennessee. But boy, we've got to watch everything that happens in Nashville because it is Nashville and Memphis are the two lefty counties, and we cannot let that cancer spread out into the rest of the state.
Let's talk about this litigation. So in 2017, the Tennessee General Assembly passed a bill that was signed into law by Governor Haslam called the Improve Act, which basically said that local governments, like a dozen or so local governments, which include Nashville, could go ahead and put a referendum on to increase the sales taxes for the purpose of funding a transit plan,
Right.
transit. Now, Mayor O'Connell put together a plan that's really not a transit plan, and the portion of it that's transit, buses, is ludicrous because nobody wants to ride a bus. It's about it's over $6 billion. More than half of it is not buses, and a little less than half is buses, the most ineffective transit possible. It is clearly a violation of the Improve Act because it was funding non-transit stuff, and yet the mayor and all of the attorneys in Metro Nashville have blithely said, "Oh no, we comply with the law." You were in the trial in Chancery Court here in Davidson County last week. How can those attorneys for the Metro Nashville government just lie so straightforwardly?
Well, it was fascinating sitting there, frankly. The arrogance of government just expands as we let it. The officials, government officials, especially those who see government as the Democrats see government, as the liberals see government, as a way to impose their moral orthodoxy on the rest of us and to micromanage our lives so that our lives are better in their eyes. And that really is what was reflected in the court testimony was exactly that. Basically, they said, we can do any damn thing we want to. There is really no limit on our power. Yeah, there are the plain words of the law that say we should do this and that, but we really can do any damn thing we want to. The taxpayers
But what
be
was
damned.
what was the argument? Because the letter of the law is quite clear. It's obvious that that additional sales tax can only be passed for transit related activities. And this Christmas tree includes all sorts of other stuff. And yet, they just said, doesn't matter. The state law doesn't matter.
Yeah, and to give your viewers a little bit of history, in 2018, another referendum was held, authorized under the same law, and it was defeated overwhelmingly. So Mayor O'Connell was around then and saw that happen. So he decided basically, okay, we're going to get this thing passed. We're going to have to do whatever we have to get this thing passed. So he basically just started adding stuff in that was not authorized by the law. That really is what happened. A total disregard for the plain language of the statute. And he said, we're going to put in bicycle paths. We're going to put in traffic light synchronization. And he said very openly, multiple times, this plan is for you, even if you don't ride the bus. Well, the bus really is the only part of this that was authorized by the Improve Act. But he basically said, we can't, like you said, the bus system in Nashville carries less than 1% of commuters.
Yeah.
So it is basically irrelevant in terms of traffic congestion.
Hold on through the break, Ben, and when we come back, I want to talk about where this is going to go. It's not not just Nashville. It's how do you correct a violation of the law by your local or state government? That's very important. Back with Ben Cunningham of the Nashville Tea Party after this.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of The Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. We're joined on our Zoom Newsmaker line right now by a very good friend, the founder of the Nashville Tea Party, Ben Cunningham. So, Ben, the mayor of Nashville and his entire team decides we're going to get a whole bunch of money by increasing the sales tax here illegally. We're going to pretend it's in compliance, which it is not, in the 2017 State Improve Act.
Right.
And we're going to kind of continue that. We're going to take it. We're going to put that referendum on the ballot. It passes significantly, even though it's illegal. So then a group forms to file a lawsuit and to say this is illegal. It cannot happen. You can't increase the sales tax to fund this illegal program. You file a lawsuit in Chancery Court. The arguments were heard. That's the lowest trial court level in the state of Tennessee. Mm-hmm. What can you tell us about that process? It happened. The hearings were held by a Chancery Court judge last week. What's your sense of how that judge is going to respond to it, and what's your sense of the various arguments that were made there?
It's going to be very interesting. Typically, I think the general consensus is that the Chancery Court's judges who are elected countywide, they're elected by popular vote countywide, are going to be very. The judge is a Democrat. She did listen intensely to the arguments. The arguments to us were very plain, very clear about the Improve Act and what it authorizes and what it doesn't authorize. She is going to issue her ruling before the end of January, because that's when they start collecting the tax, is February 1st. And so it's going to be interesting. She was attentive to all the arguments. But again, she's elected countywide. As she's a dyed-in-the-wool liberal Democrat, very obviously been active in Democrat politics here locally. So we'll just have to see if she does rule against us. Of course, there is the possibility of an appeal to the state appeals court, and I guess even eventually to the Supreme Court. But it is absolutely, you were talking with Mark Pulliam earlier about California and about how far they've gone and how difficult it is going to pull them back from this lefty model of governance. And there really is no good solution at this point. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can intervene from the federal government or try to. But the ultimate solution here is that local California taxpayers and citizens have got to take charge of their government. And they understand now that it has gotten out of their control, and it's in the control of a small cabal of liberal lawmakers and bureaucrats. And unless they start taking it back, the situation will get worse. And this lawsuit here in Nashville, it was the same kind of situation. We've got to stand up to this lefty cabal of people in Nashville who want to raise taxes, and they're going to raise them again. This was about a tax increase, this transit referendum, to fund transit. Of course, it's not transit; it's all kinds of other things. And we've got a property tax coming up that he's going to propose, the mayor's going to propose. We've got to fight back against that. We've got to understand the power of government to destroy our economy, to destroy our lives. The power of taxation is the power to take money out of our pockets and put it into their pockets. That in reality is what we're talking about. And if we don't understand the true power of government, and we don't understand our responsibility to hold government accountable, it's lost. All is lost. And the people of California, I hope, are coming to that realization that ultimately the decision, the solution here is for California citizens to take action and take back their government. We did it at the national level, and these far left blue states are going to have to do it. California, Oregon, New York. New York is a mess right now. And if we allow Nashville to stay on this lefty track, we're going to have the same problems.
Yeah, that's sort of my point. And now this is me speaking, not you. So look, right. We've got the first level of decision will be made at the Chancery Court level by the judge, who, as you say, listened very intently. I thought it was kind of interesting that one of the people arguing on behalf of the city's position is State Senator Jeff Yarborough, who I think was in the Tennessee General Assembly at the time that the Improve Act was passed. He certainly knows what the intent of that act was, and the letter of the law. He certainly knows that it's a violation of the law, what they're doing. But nonetheless, he made the argument counter to that.
He was actively involved in crafting the legislation.
Yeah.
Which sets up all kinds of perverse incentives, it would seem. I mean, when you litigate something, a piece of legislation that you are actively involved in crafting, there's certainly some questions about perverse incentives there.
Yeah, exactly. Nonetheless, I think it is likely this is going to be a test of our judicial system here in Tennessee, but particularly, the Chancery Court in Nashville, with which I've had a little bit of experience.
Yes,
is really, really populated by far left Democrats as judges.
Yep.
And so you can't really have public confidence in something that is plain black letter law that this referendum is illegal. If a judge rules otherwise, public confidence in the judicial system here in Tennessee, I think, will decline among those of us who actually believe in the rule of law.
Oh yeah, and we saw it with all the J6 trials. I mean,
at the federal level,
at the federal level, and the prosecutions of Trump and the lawfare and weaponizing the Department of Justice. This has been going on. The Hunter Biden's laptop and all those things. People have lost confidence in government in general, and certainly in the judicial system. And we've got to start rebuilding that. That really is the very foundation of our faith in our system of government, our American experiment. If we don't have faith that those basic institutions can govern fairly and treat each person fairly, we're in big trouble.
So I would be surprised if the judge in this instance makes the right decision. I would be surprised. And I would be pleased if they did. But having said that, then you go through a very lengthy appeal process. You apply to the Court of Appeals here. They then decide whether to take it or not. And if the Court of Appeals is, again, trustworthy, they'll take it up. But you don't know. And then it could go all the way to the Supreme Court. I think if this case, if the taxpayers lose this case, and the Court of Appeals doesn't take it up on appeal, that will further undermine public confidence in the judiciary system here in Tennessee.
Oh, no question.
Yeah.
As I understand it, it can be appealed. From what I have heard people say, there's no question that it can be appealed, and probably would be. I'm guessing it'll be appealed either way. If it goes in Metro government's favor, they'll appeal it. It's likely that Emily and the committee will appeal it. If it goes against the lawsuit, the issues we're bringing. I'm guessing an appeal, but you're right. Unless it's an expedited appeal, it could take a year.
I know
18
this
months.
because our lawsuit in state court, where we wanted to get the Covenant Killer Manifesto released under the Tennessee Public Records Act, our lawsuit we lost at the Chancery Court level under basically a very ridiculous decision issued by the judge there. We are still we are appealing it, but that's going to take a year or so. We're going to get this thing. We're going to get that thing released by the FBI probably before the end of this month, and all of this will become moot. Well, Ben Cunningham with the Nashville Tea Party. Give us your social contact information.
NashvilleTeaParty.com, and of course we're on Facebook, Facebook.com, Nashville Tea Party, Twitter, Instagram. We're even on Bluesky.
Oh, there you go. Ben Cunningham with the Nashville Tea Party. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Michael. Always enjoy it.
When we come back, Tom Zalostowski from Ohio. Who is Mike DeWine going to pick to replace J.D. Vance in the Senate? Back after this.
My fellow Americans, I was this close, very close, to buying from the lumber yards. These are sick people. But I turned my head at the last second, and I saw a big, beautiful ad for D.T. McCall's. These are highly respected people. If I had not turned my head at the last second, I would have been ripped off at some lumber yard for $200 in hidden charges, and D.T. McCall & Sons are never going to do that. They'd never do that to you. These are great people. I've known them for a long time. They have great deals, and I just have to say, nobody knows deals like I do. D.T. McCall & Sons has locations in Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Cookeville, and Franklin, and they have been family-owned in Middle Tennessee for over 100 years. These are tremendous people. D.T. McCall & Sons. Check out one of their stores today.
Impersonator not endorsed by Donald Trump.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
We welcome to our Zoom Newsmaker line right now our friend for many, many years, head of the We the People Convention, based in Akron, Ohio, Tom Zalistowski. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Michael. How are you today?
Well, 7 days. Well, actually less than 7 days now.
Counting down the hours, huh?
Counting them down. Well, actually 7 days, 27 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah,
Until
right.
Donald Trump is the 47th president.
That's a very important time indeed, and we're all hoping that things go well and that we can make that happen and get on with fixing our nation.
So, Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, can he draw this thing out any longer? J.D. Vance is the vice president-elect, former senator from Ohio. He resigned effective midnight Thursday, which means right now we are looking at basically all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, half a day Monday, 3.5 days where the state of Ohio does not have its second U.S. senator. How long can DeWine draw this thing out?
Well, I think it's going to come soon because, as you know, I think it's Wednesday. The Senate starts to consider some of the Trump nominees.
Well, it's tomorrow.
This week.
It's tomorrow, Tuesday. Yeah.
So, I mean, how can he not do it to give us that vote? Because, as you know, with the the trans Democrats, Lisa Murkowski and Collins in Maine, you've got to have those extra votes. And
did you really say that, Tom? Did you really say that?
I just did.
Did you just make that up? It's very clever, by the way.
I think it's very accurate. And so now you have John Fetterman, who is trying to be a reasonable person and say, hey, Trump won Pennsylvania. Maybe I ought to represent Pennsylvania and vote for his nominees. But boy, I would be really upset if Ohio does not have 2 votes for the president's nominee. So I expected the announcement today. It hasn't happened yet. I checked before we came on here, but I do expect it today. And there is a lot of surprise about John Husted, quite frankly, because you and I have talked about the fact that he
tell everybody
who
he is. Who's John? Tell me who he is.
Yeah. So John Husted has been a House member, a Senate member. He actually was going to run in the primary against DeWine back in 2022, I guess it would have been. And DeWine made a deal. He basically said, you become my lieutenant governor and help me win the governorship. And after I serve my 2 terms, then you'll be the guy we support to be governor. And John Huston's talked outright about the fact that's his goal. He wants to be president of the United States, and his way to get to be president of the United States was to be a successful Ohio governor.
Don't they all,
so,
Tom?
That's the idea.
They look in the mirror and they see the next president of the United States. I would prefer, I like it better when we have a guy like Trump who looks in the mirror and says, I'm a guy that can get things done for the American people. I like that a lot better, don't you?
Yeah, or a guy like Trump who says, I don't need this, man. This is what they're doing to me is horrible. I should run away and just have my wonderful life. Who says, no, I'm going to run into the fire. That's not John Husted. He's a decent guy. I know him, but we're not ideologically on the same page often. And there's a lot of people in Ohio who are disappointed about that. But I think here's the key ingredient, Mike. You and I have talked about, the swamp in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio, is as deep and as bad as the swamp in Washington. And what we want is Vivek Ramaswamy to run for governor in 2026 as an independent who can reform not just our state government, but the corrupt Ohio Republican Party. And so we've been kind of watching this, expecting he's going to have to run against Houston. But I'm being told, I've literally had some operatives in Ohio tell me that when DeWine and Houston went to Mar-a-Lago, that basically they were told that Ramaswamy is going to run for governor, so you better take this Senate seat because otherwise you're going to not be governor either. And that there was a deal there. And if that's the deal, if John Huston's going to be the senator so that Vivek Ramaswamy has an open field to become governor, boy, I'm all for that, because John Huston will vote the way Trump wants. He really has no choice. Bernie Moreno and J.D. Vance, those guys, and Trump himself will make sure of that. But boy, if that means we get Vivek Ramaswamy for governor of Ohio in 2026, sign me up, baby. Sign me up.
So now Houston would be up for re-election in 2026, right? As in the Senate, is that right?
And 2028 again.
Oh, and 2028. That's right. Because he'd have to.
It's crazy.
It's it's a partial term. Right?
Yes.
So he'd run for a 2-year term and then for a 6-year term.
Yep. And that means hundreds of millions of dollars, Mike, as you know, each time. And the question here in Ohio is the recently defeated Sherrod Brown going to run for that Senate seat because Trump won't be on the ballot? And will a John Huston be able to defeat a Sherrod Brown? The real answer to that is if the Republicans perform, I don't think Democrats are going to win hardly anything in 2026. If we perform, that's going to seal the deal. If we don't, we're going to take some losses in 2026, not just in Ohio.
So to me, of course, Sherrod Brown could say, I'll run for governor in 2026.
Yeah.
I don't
He
know.
might.
He might.
Because think about it, because he would be the junior senator. He's like 74 now, right? So he'd be 76 in a 6-year term. He'd be in his 80s. So there are people who are saying he might run for governor because it's a little easier gig and it would help their party. I'm not so sure about that, but you know what? I'd sure like to see Vivek crush Sherrod Brown as governor candidate. That'd be fun.
So Vivek, and I'm friends with Vivek. He's a good guy. I think he and Elon working on the Department of Government Efficiency went very well. But this whole H-1B visa thing kind of seems like an unforced error to me. Your thoughts on that, Tom Zalestowski?
Yeah, lots of talk about that in Ohio for sure. And I do think it exposed both Elon and Vivek of being in the silos that they're in, where they're seeing things from their perspective and not really understanding what the common American sees. But you know what, Michael, that's good. Unlike the Democrats, where you make one unforced error and you're cast off into Siberia for the rest of your life, we instead had a very powerful conversation online on X, in podcasts and things, and talked about the H-1B visa program and came to an understanding where Musk finally said, yeah, I support it, but it needs to be fixed. It needs to be reformed. That's the way it should work. So we're not mad at Vivek because he said what he said. We're happy to have had the conversation, and I think they've maybe changed. Now, I want to ask you something, though. I was pretty upset by Steve Bannon's statements about Musk over the weekend, and I know you know Steve Bannon. You talk about an unforced error. I just don't see his targeting Musk as seriously as he is as being productive. What's your read on that?
Well, if all goes well, we'll have Steve on the program in about an hour, and we'll talk about that.
I want to watch that. I'll be tuning in.
Tune in for that.
You bet.
Very, very interesting stuff. Now let's go back to the whole Senate thing.
Yeah.
So the rumor is that it's going to be Husted, but is there any possibility it could be somebody else? And
I think there is. I think that the Jane Timkins are still in the mix. I think that Frank LaRose might still be in the mix. But because I find it hard to believe that Houston's going to give up his dream of being governor of Ohio. Though, if what they told me happened in Mar-a-Lago is true, I can see why he might make that decision.
But Husted would lose right now. Wouldn't Vivek Ramaswamy win a Republican gubernatorial primary over Husted?
I think yes, over any.
I mean, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll see. We could be surprised, but Mike DeWine's not one of the kind of surprise guys. He's one of these guys who, unfortunately, is always wrong and always does the wrong thing.
How old is DeWine now?
To be, do the same thing here.
How old is he now?
The key thing is, what's that?
How old is DeWine now? Is he like 80?
Boy, he's right there. Yeah, he's right there. And he's got nothing to lose. There's articles saying, what does he have to trade for this? Okay, like what, why would he do what Trump wants? And there's even talk about his son is on the Supreme Court. And there's talk that DeWine would want his son to be appointed to a federal bench. That's the problem with politics. It's always let's make a deal, right?
Well, I think there was also a rumor that DeWine, who's a Catholic, wanted to be appointed ambassador to the Vatican. Didn't happen, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much leverage he actually has because he hasn't really supported Trump that strongly. So we'll see. But here's the great news. The great news is that regardless of who we appoint, we know they're going to vote for Trump's nominees. And I don't know if you're picking it up, Mike, but I'm picking it up. The Senate and the House are getting in line, baby. I'm really encouraged by the conversations I've been hearing, and that, Hegseth has the votes, and now I'm hearing RFK has the votes, and even Gabbard has the votes. And with a Fetterman coming on, and I think even with some of the legislative votes, we're going to see more Democrats in the House vote with the Republicans than people are thinking right now. Because I got news for you. If we deliver and they're not with us, they're going to get creamed in 2026.
I think you're probably right on that.
I'm very excited about the legislative
The key element is if we deliver. I think Trump is more capable now of building that coalition to deliver than he was first time around because he doesn't have anything more to prove. They've got nothing to come after him with. And really, I mean, he's very genuinely advancing the interests of the entire country, and I think people.
Well, the SALT conversation that you heard about this weekend, where the Democrats and the more moderate, let's call them Republicans, want to have the SALT tax thing raised, which is this thing that I was all for, that said you can't write off your New York taxes on your federal income tax. That was insane. And we took that away. Now they're complaining and they're saying, it's just not fair. We pay more to the federal government. But Trump is not just saying, forget it. He's saying, I'll listen and they'll do something. Trump's doing a great job. I'm really excited.
Okay, last question. What's the over-under on, let's see, it's 11:45 Eastern right now on Monday. How many hours from now until DeWine names who he's going to appoint to the Senate?
I certainly think less than 24. I think if
less
he doesn't do it
24.
today, he's got to do it tomorrow morning. He's got to be sitting in the Senate to vote for Trump's appointees this week.
I would say it should be 12, but you're probably right. It should be less than 24 hours. Tom Zastowski with the We the People Convention. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see you.
All right. Good to see you, too. Back with more after this.
Hey, I'm Governor Bill Lee, and I want to talk to you about an important education bill in Tennessee. Everyone knows that education has the power to change the trajectory of a child's life forever. And anyone who's raised a child knows that each one's different in their educational needs, and their learning styles, and their talents. The fact is, parents know their own children best. They know what's best for their education and their future. That's why I'm here to talk to you about Tennessee's Education Freedom Act. It empowers parents across our state to use their tax dollars to choose the school that allows their child to thrive, regardless of zip code or income, all while making significant investments in Tennessee's public education. If you want to learn how you can help make the Education Freedom Act a reality in Tennessee, go to educationfreedomact.com and write or call your state representatives. It's educationfreedomact.com.
This ad is paid for by Job Creators Network.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. There's so much going on with the Los Angeles fires. So much, quote, misinformation, mostly coming from elected Democrat leaders here. Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles, Governor Gavin Newsom. There's a terrific independent journalist by the name of Michael Schellenberger. Michael, as you probably know, he's based in San Francisco. And Michael is one of the guys that got the files, the Twitter files from Elon Musk, and wrote extensively about it. He interviewed me back in June when the Chancery Court judge here on bogus charges threatened to put me in jail for contempt of court simply for exercising my First Amendment rights as it relates to the Covenant Killer parts of the Covenant Killer Manifesto, which we obtained legally and began writing stories about it. Didn't publish actually the 90 pages that we got until well after the judge made her decision in July on this, a bad decision, which we're appealing. Having said that, Schellenberger, very bright guy. I wanted to give you this information from Michael Schellenberger talking about the Los Angeles fires and why they happened. It's a long clip. We'll start off and we'll probably break a bit and pause it as we go through. Here we go. Michael Schellenberger on the Los Angeles fires.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Schellenberger for Public. As a new wave of fire and high winds threatens Los Angeles, the media is reporting that California's elected leaders are not to blame, and that right-wing influencers and Donald Trump are spreading misinformation and politicizing a tragedy. Gender and racial quotas through DEI aren't to blame. And no, Mayor Bass didn't cut the fire department's budget. No, Gavin Newsom didn't cut CAL FIRE's wildfire prevention budget. And no, there wasn't any way to prevent those fires or the fire hydrant water from running out. Climate change made them inevitable due to whiplashing rain levels. Those are all lies. The fire department had made DEI such a priority that the city's deputy fire chief dismissed concerns that women would not be able to carry a man out of the fire by saying he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Newsom did indeed reduce CAL FIRE's.
Okay, so hold on a little bit. That is, I get the top three officers in the city of Los Angeles Fire Department are all lesbians, and none of them look like they could carry anybody out of a fire. Okay, now think about this for a moment. Is it the case that the three most qualified people to fight fires in Los Angeles are all lesbians who look like they haven't been to the gym for a while? Let's put it that way. Be kind about it. No, that's clearly a DEI thing going on there. All right, let's go back to Michael Schellenberger.
Reduce CAL FIRE's wild prevention budget by $150 million in 2020. If California had elected leaders who cared about the people and were competent, they could have prevented the catastrophic fires from destroying 14,000 homes and businesses and forcing nearly 200,000 people to evacuate. Climate change is not responsible for the disasters. There is no change in the rain pattern. Now, the details here matter. The offhand remark by the deputy fire chief is not proof that DEI contributed to the inadequate response. The disaster is decades in the making. LA's leaders have known that the city was unprepared for catastrophic wildfires since the Bel Air fire of 1961, which occurred when Karen Bass was a child and Gavin Newsom wasn't even alive. LA's fire budget had actually increased by about $50 million compared to the last budget, according to Politico Time and the LA Times. And Newsom increased the wildfire prevention budget after 2020 and increased land treated for wildfires by 90,000 acres. But all of those facts are either wrong, misleading, or both. The attitude towards vulnerable men expressed by the deputy fire chief is deeply alarming and anathema to firefighter ethics. That the disaster was decades in the making makes the inaction by California's political leaders even more inexcusable. The city council in November approved $53 million to raise salaries, but that funding was completely irrelevant to the millions that Bass cut, which her own fire chief said last month had severely limited the department's capacity to prepare for, train for, and respond to large-scale emergencies, including wildfires. And while funding for wildfire prevention did increase recently, it obviously wasn't enough, and Newsom was caught overstating how much land was treated by 690%. In truth, the amount of irresponsibility and incompetence displayed by Newsom and Bass is so extreme that insiders are now coming forward and speaking out. The owner of the Los Angeles Times himself went on national television yesterday to call it crazy that we don't elect leaders with competence.
It's so crazy that we have leaders that are reactive rather than proactive. We don't elect people with great operational competence.
And LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley went on CNN, CBS, and Fox to denounce Bass.
Let me be clear. The $17 million budget cut and the elimination of our civilian positions like our mechanics did and has and will continue to severely impact our ability to repair our apparatus. So with that, we have over 100 fire apparatus.
Let's cut all this off because we're running out of time here. What's the bottom line here? Local and state officials in California just are incompetent and don't care. They are not capable of solving this problem to rebuild the 62 square miles of LA that have been burnt out, nor are they capable of making sure that a similar catastrophe will never happen again. And on that note, we'll take a break. We'll come back with the Tennessee Bonus Hour. Crom Carmichael joins us. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.